Oh, yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting session with the TAPS community. This is Victor and the lead for the program. And today we're having the onboarding event for the Digital Aggregators Program. Now, the Digital Aggregators Program is the brainchild of the TFFDS community, the first, I think, the number one community that deals with the African continent. Now, the vision of this program is the vision of this program is to create a world where individuals learn and co-learn, leveraging on our collective knowledge and expertise to solve complex problems and creating a more sustainable future. Now, the TFFDS Digital Aggregators Program is a platform that facilitates collaboration and innovation across disciplines and borders with a focus on creating sustainable solutions for the future. TFFDS is all about the future. Our platform leverages digital technologies to connect individuals and organizations, enabling them to share knowledge and expertise and work together to solve complex problems. Through our transdisciplinary approach, we aim to break down silos and foster a culture of collaboration and innovation to create a more sustainable future. You ask, what is the overview of this program? Why is this program very essential? Now, the Digital Aggregators Program is an intensive and comprehensive training program designed to equip the participants in edge digital skills and empower them to thrive in the rapidly evolving digital landscape. Now, in this program, we are exploring diverse areas such as gamification, game science, blockchain and distributed economy, IT, web development, and other essential digital skills. So right away, I'll be introducing our speakers for today's onboarding session. We have Dr. Hughes, we have Dr. Hughes, we have Dr. Hughes, we have Dr. Edwards, and we have our very own Dr. Natasha right before us. Now, Dr. Hughes is the head of future studies in the TFFDS community. Dr. Natasha is the head of strategy and innovation in the Afro longevity community, and our very own Dr. David Woods is the chair of London Futures community and the co-founder of CBN. Yeah, I used that device one time ago. And also with us is our CEO, Dr. Brenda. I think she just went off. So right away we'll take in the opening remark from Dr. Brenda. I think she just left us now. Please pardon. When she come on, we immediately start with that. So therefore, without much ado, the onboarding session or the onboarding have started. Now, I would like each and every one of you listening to me right now to not just, I want each and every one of you listening to me right now to keep just seated. Get your pen and your paper ready because we have seasoned experts. I've gone through their portfolio. Wow. Oh, amazing. Yeah, I have mine here too. Right away. Yeah. We have seasoned experts. I've gone through their portfolio, done some deep digging into their profile, and I believe I'm privileged to be speaking with some of them because these are some persons I aspire to become when I grow up. I'm still growing. I'm still a very young man. So Thank you very much. Right away, we'll Dr. Edwards will be giving his presentation, his presentation will be centered on his presentation will be centered on future studies and digital aggregation. Future studies and digital aggregation. So therefore, I will want each and every one of us right away to get seated. Keep not your fingers crossed, keep your pen busy and your notepad ready to listen and get some very important details done. Thank you very much. So his presentation will be coming on now.
Okay.
All right.
All righty. Yeah, okay. I did have a few slides. I don't know if you can get them up, but I have the presentation here if you can't. Yes, right, anyway.
Your slide is coming on now.
Okay.
So now.
Okay. Well, as we're getting this up, I just want to say welcome everybody, and it's great to be on a panel. Here we go with my two colleagues who can certainly speak to this issue as well as I can. And so I'm going to give a kind of an overview, and I know that our work and our discussions will complement one another. So I'm speaking today about future studies and digital aggregation, and let's go to the next slide here. And I thought I would start out with, can you go to the next slide? Here we go. I thought I'd start out simply by saying, why do we need future studies to begin with? And first of all, one of the reasons is that future studies are essential for any value creator. If you're listening to me, perhaps you want to become a scientist or a researcher, perhaps you are already. You're creating knowledge value. If you're an entrepreneur, you're creating market value, you're creating economic value. If you're what I call a social entrepreneur, you're creating institutional and organizational value, institutional and organizational change. And if you're a public policy entrepreneur, as I have been for many, many years, what you're doing is trying to unleash these other value creators. And so that's kind of the context of the way I want to frame this discussion of future study. So if you go to the next slide, the challenges we face right now are rather unique. And that is the challenge of an accelerating future, you might say. In the past, the Industrial Revolution saw more economic, social, organizational, public policy, and cultural change than all of human history combined. And I want to add that it created more wealth than all of human history in the centuries before. It created a middle class in most of the industrialized, what we call now the industrialized countries. It moved hundreds of millions literally out of poverty to prosperity. It was incredible. But even with that fast change, it usually took decades and perhaps even centuries for the changes in technology to work their way through the society, through the economy, and the like. There was time to adjust. Exponential technology is, of course, different. Change takes place much, much quicker over a much shorter period of time, perhaps only a few short decades or even years. As most of you probably know, exponential growth means you don't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. So instead of ending with 7, you end with 64. And that is the era we're in right now. We need to have future studies because in the, to quote the title of Peter Diamandis's excellent book, the future is faster than you think. We are on a very fast timeline. So let's go to the next slide and talk about thinking like a futurist. And I want to give a couple of, set the context here for how to think like a futurist. Waiting for the slide to come up, but I'll go ahead and start. First of all, if you're studying for any of these areas to be a scientist, a researcher, an entrepreneur, what I call a social innovator, a public policy innovator. The first thing, obviously, is you need to be conversant in the new technology, infotech, nanotech, biotech, robotics, AI, and the Internet of Things, because these technologies, of course, have already changed our world and are going to change our world even faster in the future. So the goal is not just to understand the current state of technology, the current state of social institutions, public policy, culture. It is to anticipate the direction and trends. The way I like to describe this, if you're having fun with a friend and the friend is running around and you're throwing a ball, you don't throw the ball to where the friend is. You throw the ball to where the friend is going to be. What we want to do essentially is look at where the ball is going, or where the technology is going, where the social institutions are going. That's what we're trying to do. Give you a couple of quick examples here. Some of you probably know these already. Moore's Law, named after the late, great Gordon Moore, basically was an insight that computing power essentially was going to double every year and a half to 2 years, meaning computer power was going to go up exponentially. Bill Gates in the late 1970s appreciated this trend. He appreciated that more and more computer hardware would become a commodity. There would be a lot of competition. It would become better and better. It would become less and less expensive per computing capacity. And so what he saw was that it's going to be the software that runs the machines that's going to be really where the profits are. And of course, as we know, he basically created an operating system, DOS, then Windows. He created many of the apps that we all use right now. And so he was a futurist in that sense. He was looking ahead. An example of a company that didn't quite do that was Kodak. Now, for those of you who are young, and I suspect it's pretty much most of you looking at it, it used to be that if you take a photograph, you look it on film. See, this is a little piece of film. I used to develop my own film, and you took it on film, and then you went to a dark room and you printed it, and that's how you did it. Or you could do it like slides. This is what a slide looks like that you could show on a slide projector. And Kodak made most of its money selling film, selling processing materials, chemicals, and the paper that you printed the photographs on. It was Kodak that actually invented the digital camera, or an entrepreneur and innovator at Kodak. But Kodak was never able to quite make the transition to basically, sacrifice its business in paper and chemicals and so forth, and allow the emerging digital camera device become the prominent and the most profitable thing in Kodak. And so Kodak is now a shadow of what it used to be. Apple, by the way, Steve Jobs, when he came back to Kodak, there were smartphones before the current smartphones. And in fact, David Wood worked on exactly that device. But what Steve Jobs did was he understood that, well, smartphones are vulnerable because what happens if somebody puts a music player on them, because he had invented the iPod, or his company invented the iPod. So maybe we have to combine these things, have a music player, a phone, and a search engine on the same device. He was a futurist in that sense. You also, therefore, what you have to do also is keep your eye on the full context. If you're, for example, working in technology, you have to keep an eye on not just where the technology is going, you have to keep an eye on where the society is going, where the social institutions are going, and the like. I'll give you an example of that in just a few moments here. Go to the next slide if you can. I'll give you another quick example here of someone who didn't quite predict the future right. In the 1970s, there were about 3.5 billion people in this on this planet, and a famous book came out called The Population Bomb, and it predicted. Oops, wait a minute. Oh, go back to the slide before. I think we missed one here. Yeah, here we go. Yeah. Okay. There was a book called The Population Bomb that predicted, Paul Ehrlich was the author of that book, that there would literally be millions of people dying in the streets by the 1980s because of starvation, because we simply couldn't produce enough food. Um, in fact, today we have almost 8 billion people on the planet. The only starvation we have generally is, in countries that have very poor political systems and the like. The biggest problem in the developed world is not people starving to death. It's people who are obese and really have to eat less. And part of the reason why is that people like Paul Ehrlich didn't appreciate some of the trends that a futurist would pick up on. And so here's how you think like a futurist. You see, as countries become more and more prosperous, they can devote more money and resources to healthcare. Therefore, people will live longer. Now, one of the reasons why families were big in the past is that when healthcare was poor, someone might have to have 6 or 8 children to make sure that at least 2 or 3 of them survived, so that when those parents retired, there would be someone to take care of them. But as countries became more and more profitable, more prosperous, they were able to put more money into healthcare, meaning it was more assured that children were going to survive. They could create a social safety net so that when you retire, you have a retirement account, so you don't have to worry about your children taking care of you. And therefore, you needed fewer children. I mean, children are wonderful. I have 2 of them. My late parents had 6 of us, and so I'm all for big families. But the point is, population, instead of going the way Paul Ehrlich expected it to go, it did continue to go up, but family size basically evened out, and technology allowed for more efficient food production. So futurists would see all those things and say, okay, this is where things are going. I want to also make 2 other important points. Actually, I want to give one more example because this is very African focused, and then I'll finish up in just about a minute here. There's discussion about how to handle healthcare in Africa, and I've seen some of my fellow transhumanists had suggested, well, we need to build like 25,000 brick and mortar hospitals and all across Africa to take care of healthcare. I would say, well, my friends, you're not really thinking like a futurist, because what a futurist would do is take a look at the current state of technology, of health technology, seeing it's becoming better and better, more remote monitoring is possible. Most of us now, or a lot of us now, have Fitbits and Apple Watches that can simply monitor health in real time. They would take a look and say, we don't need expensive brick and mortar hospitals, or not as many, because technology is going to deal with this situation. And that's one of my real focuses today on how that's going to happen. 2 other quick points, and then I'll finish up here. We need to accept uncertainty in a dynamic world. Predictions are usually approximations. A lot of times they're inaccurate. You have to realize that that's the nature of science. Science is a discovery process. It's not a we know 100% in every single case about whatever the situation is. The same for economies, the same for social institutions. You have to have a mindset, if you're a futurist, to think in terms of uncertainty, but always be trying to find the best approximation. It's like a swimmer in rough seas. A swimmer in rough seas might be going in that direction, but a wave hits them this way and that way, and they always have to be adjusting depending on new knowledge. And I want to mention also real quickly the problem of reproducibility. And this is going to be very important as we aggregate and try to look at future studies, is that we have lots and lots of material coming out of great breakthroughs and so forth, but a lot of them turn out to not be correct. We always have to realize that you have to be very careful, say this looks very promising, but let's take a look and see how it goes. Let's see if we can reproduce the tests. Okay, let me go ahead and conclude. If you can go to my final slide here. I want to say a few words about a strategy for future studies. You listening to me today and listening to my colleagues here, the pioneers, and there's a lot of great work that's been done that, I could direct you to. Of course, we have our own book here, this Seizing Our Singularity Future. My friend Ugochukwu has a very good book on how to think, how to exercise your thinking. We will hear very soon from David Wood, who has his excellent book on vital forethought. I could go over a whole lot of other books, and anyone's interested, I'd be happy to do that. We need to build curricula, courses for students, and we need over time to get them into universities. At first are going to be giving courses about this. Then you get them into high school curriculum and you work your way down. That's a path over time. You have to experiment with formats. This is one format. Text is another format. Interactive is going to be another format. The so-called Socratic methods is another format. We have to experiment with formats. And this is all what I think digital aggregation is about. So I'm going to stop here because, and there are techniques you can use to become a better futurist. Natasha, who you're going to hear from in a few moments, has taught courses on this. Anyway, so I want to thank you for your attention. And I'm very happy to be on this broadcast and with my friends, and I'm eager to hear what they have to say. So thank you very much, everybody.
Wow. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much, distinguished speaker, Dr. Edwards, who just gave us a very is a mind-stimulating presentation on future studies and digital aggregation. We have made mention of future studies are essential to value creation, the challenges of an accelerating future, thinking like a futurist, thinking like it's about thinking as vision and strategies for future studies. So thank you very much, sir. I'm so grateful for your contribution to this community of digital aggregation. So very quickly, we want to invite our CEO to quickly give us the opening remark. I think she had some said she went off some minutes ago. So once she come on, immediately after that, our very own Dr. Natasha will be coming to talk more on future studies. Thank you very much.
Hello, everybody. Apologies. In a mining site, and the network is not really very good. But I'm glad to be here, and I'd like to welcome everybody that has decided to join the TEFT community in this amazing program. I think, as we work towards making sure that we've got more futurists, more forward thinkers in Africa, this is one of the programs that we are using to ensure that we transfer digital skills, we develop digital skills, and we also create a platform where we can learn from each other. As we always say at TEFS, that we are a community of leaders. It's not one person that is a leader. Being a community of leaders means that we need to continuously grow, continuously learn, and learn from every platform that we can learn from. And this is a great one where we get a chance to collaborate with all of the people across the world, our people within the regions that we are in, across the African country. And I'm quite excited about what the future holds for us if we continue doing programs like this. This is just one of the many programs that we anticipate will be coming in future. And we are going to do these programs through our technology leg of TEFs and also through our science leg of TEFs. So I'm quite excited to have all of you here and to have all the amazing speakers that are here today. These are people that have volunteered their time to serve on our advisory board, and they continuously share their experiences and their knowledge with us. They are great supporters of what we do in Africa, with the hope that we also, as we learn and as we really solidify our knowledge, we can also be able to impart what we've learned and what we've done for Africa to the world. So with those few words, I'd like to also thank the team that has put together this program. I know it took a lot of sweat for you to put this. Victor and your team, thank you very much for putting this together. And for everybody that is here, all the best. And I hope all of you can learn. And next time when you come around in an event like this, we can all share all of that learning. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. That is the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer of TFFDS, Ms. Brenda. So quickly, we want to bring on our next speaker. So a lady that I truly admire. I've gone through her profile. Her profile is like a book to me, because the more I read her profile, the more I get inspired. She's an inspiration to young transhumanists and budding transhumanists like us. And thank you very much, Ma, for joining us. She'll be giving a presentation quickly, and let me quickly bring up the presentation. Ma, you're welcome. Please confirm if you can hear me, please. Your mic is muted, Ma.
Hi there. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm very excited about this program. I'll start, and then when you get the PowerPoint ready, I just put it up, and then we'll move through that. Is that good? So my topic is
Yes.
The relevance of transhumanism in innovation. And I think that the best way to look at this is that the era we currently exist within has come to a threshold of taking early ideas going back through the centuries of innovation, back to Tesla, and thinking about electricity and digitality, and where we're going through cybernetics to where we are today. Taking a look at those creative ideas are what really humanity is all about, right? We think about imagination, we implement our ideas, and we problem solve, trying to seek the other side of where we are and unveil the hidden, to find new opportunities. Certainly there are risks all along the way, and it's something we need to be very aware of and think about carefully, but not to let the risks intervene with progress, with the ways in which we can help each other and help build a safe environment and a healthy environment for everyone. So with that said, let me introduce myself. I am an academic and also a scientist. My work coalesces the field of design, storytelling, if you will, and innovation, projects and ideas that crystallize to help move us forward in thinking about who we are and where we're going. And that is all embedded in the philosophy of transhumanism. But before we get into that, let me just say that the potential of specific spheres of technological advancements and human potential brought about a powerful suite of futuristic transformations over the past many decades, going back again to the 1950s with cybernetics and the build out of the World Wide Web to the Internet of Things, and now we're looking at Web 3. So these are all stages in advancement towards our future. The ideas that put these into action are fantastic, but they wouldn't have been so fantastic had we not implemented them with a prototype, with a minimal viable product, with a workable solution, with something that can be tested and retested. That's where innovation hits the moment of where the minimal viable product or its reliability and doability or functionality is realized that makes it a true innovation. Otherwise, ideas, as wonderful as they are ideas. We have to implement them into something we can realize. The market sectors such as communication, transportation, and education all have a stake in innovation, and especially in transhumanism, since that is the era we're currently coexisting within. The stakeholders within these spheres have enormous opportunities to advance prosperity, through investments in these new ideas that bring about product development, the tools, the interfaces, the platforms, the services that we use on a daily basis. So the most apt transhumanist innovations are the ones we can use that become part of our lives, much like our cell phone or our computer, and maybe even our Fitbits, our watches, anything that we use. For example, even Alexa or any of the apps we have around us. These have become everyday tools for many people throughout the world. And the new virtual environments with augmented reality and virtual reality and the metaverse are bringing these 3D web or 3Web plus into action. So what does this mean for us? The environmental and economic impacts of these innovations within the three sectors I mentioned, communication, transportation, education, help us to understand what society needs and what society wants, what it desires. And oftentimes the needs and desires match up. And so that's where we need to focus in. And I call it need finding. And once we see a gap or what someone or some community of people or a country needs, then that means that there is a gap. And then we think, how can we fill this gap? So it's important to think about these sectors. Here I have an image of a mind map. And I'll show you some others in just a moment. Mind maps are really important when we're thinking about, oh no, don't, go back, please. Am I doing that? No, let's go back to the first slide, please. And I'll say next when I'm ready. Yes, thank you. So mind maps are the imagination of our minds through our personal experiences and what we learn from others in the world of information, what we use and how we put it together. And the mind map is used as a creative tool to help us understand the environment, let's say, of where a gap is. I hope that makes sense. If not, I can explain it further. Okay, next slide. Next slide, please. How do we do the slides, please? Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, I'll just go on and not worry about my, hey, can we stop a moment? You're gonna have to stop this and give me my next slide, please. Anyone there? Hello? Okay. All right, so I'll just go ahead. So one of the issues in looking at the mind map, which supplements the gap that we discover, is the realization that we live in a world of uncertainty. And this uncertainty can bring about daunting questions. What are we going to do? How do we deal with GPT-4? How do we deal with artificial intelligence? How do we deal with nanotechnology and the different advances in technology that are affecting our lives and will affect them even further? When we stop and think about the news, whether you get it through Twitter or Instagram, on Facebook, or through reliable sources, often tell us pessimistic things. In fact, 99% of the news on artificial intelligence is pessimistic. So we need to skirt around that to recognize it, digest it, accept it as a possibility, but move around it to find out where those gaps are in thinking and what we can implement to better bring about the mind map in our creativity. I'm sorry my slides isn't working because the slide shows all of this. Okay, but moving on, slides are just images, and I hope I can verbally make this make sense. Okay, so the bottom line is, when you are creating an innovation, first you have the idea. The idea is brought about by needs and wants, what you recognize in society, amongst your friends, in your family, in your class, and in your environment. Okay, then think about okay, what is the problem here? You really want to get down to what the problem is that permeates this or creates this gap. And then you think, oh, okay, so that's a problem. Then you think, how could I come about with a solution to fix this problem or to at least deal with it? You don't have to fix it. Not every innovation has to be brilliant or a complete set of rules and guides. It can be a step in the direction. Just thinking about it is the first step in innovation. So once you have that, then the next step is to sketch out your mind map. And the mind map means it's an image of all the different parts, we call them variables, that fit into this mind map. It's kind of like systems thinking. Everything is a system and influences each other. For example, right now we're in a system of this room, of this virtual environment with other speakers and our host and our CEO, and we're presenting ideas to you. So that creates a system of education. If we take that and look around, we'll find that everything affects each other. So in building out the mind map, we want to include everything that is possible, how people feel, are their needs being met, are their desires being met, is there a possible solution to this? What tools do we need? How are we going to create something? Once that's sorted out, you want to do a storyboard. And the storyboard tells how you're creating your innovation step by step. And here you can become as detailed as possible or not. So the main thing is to always have something that leads to something else and question it along the way. And this is called the iterative process in design thinking. You think about how this is going to maybe solve the problem or bring about that need that people have, and then test it a little bit, and then go to the next step. By the end of this process, the mind map and the storyboard, you're going to have something called a basic minimal viable product. That's still imagined, that isn't built. So from that, you want to create your prototype. Now, mind you, prototypes do not have to be realized cups or formats. Let's go to the next slides, please. Cups or formats, not even a book. You can have a prototype that is a drawing or even a sketch as a narrative, a brief. We call them innovation briefs that explain the concept. But oftentimes we want to build it out. One of the best ways to build out your product in testing stage is through 3D printing. And doing CAD design or CAD engineering is very simple. There's software all over the internet to help you do CAD. Now, what CAD is, it's a vector-based software that helps you build out your concept, whether it's a cup or a book or an app. It's very useful in that way. So what you have is something you can print out in 3D. And I've done this many times, and it's a lot of fun with students, and seeing the students' amazement and joy when they have the 3D printed concept, it's really quite wonderful. But nonetheless, you can still draw it out. And I just want to say here that sketching, just even doodling, is great. And remember, in the beginning, we were told to have our pens ready. Here you can sketch out your concept. Again, it doesn't have to be a brilliant architectural design. It can be just a doodle sketch. So once you have that, then you want to test it on an audience. And your audience can be your colleagues or your family or your friends. But you want to get their feedback. And here we need to always be confident and agreeable. There's going to be a lot of naysayers that say, I don't think this is going to work, or you could have done this better. That's great news. Remember, in the field of science, which is very important in technology and innovation, we're searching for knowledge, and that's what transhumanism is all about. It's a science of knowledge, of gaining information to help better adapt to the future. So all criticism can be helpful, of course, unless it's mean-spirited, and that is not acceptable. But critiquing is something in the futurist world that is really necessary, so we can continually ask ourselves if we're on the right track, if we're looking at this objectively, if there's something we need to add that wasn't there. And then we get to where we're ready to present our ideas. This is all a process, one step to another and another. And this is why in the field of transhumanist innovation and taking a look at how to build out an innovation, whether it's a basic concept or something you actually do want to build, the building part is the imagination. And that imagination is built out with the mind map, and second, the storyboard, and third, the innovation itself. These ideas are really great for you all in learning about how to think like a futurist, how to think like a scientist of the world of exploration like a citizen scientist, and also help to identify problems in your community that you can help resolve through your own creative innovation. Again, thinking ahead, thinking about strategies, scenarios, ways of dealing with problems. All these are what I want to offer to you so that every country in Africa that is presented in this and every area of community, social needs, culturalization, and the different ways of looking at the world can be coalesced into acceptance and inclusivity. And that's something very important to the transhumanist innovative perspective. Diversity and inclusivity are important. And in the last moments of what I'm going to say here, I'm going to just address innovation today and to market. So today, we need to look at the changes that are right in front of us in governance, and in economics, and in all financial institutions, and in how we interact with one another. The longevity community is really growing by leaps and bounds, and Africa is going to be a primary player in this area. So it's important to think about innovation as far as longevity. What happens if we live longer? What are we going to need? How are we going to deal with the elder population? How are we going to onboard younger people? And how are we going to look at social change? What happens when we go out into space? What happens when people live well past 100 in good health? What happens when, to break this, there are further wars and issues and a pandemic, for example? How could your creative thinking, your innovative strategic thinking help ahead in thinking about what the positive roles are and some of the unintended consequences along the way? This is all encompassed in the relevance and development of innovation within the transhumanist perspective. If you're asking, well, what on earth is transhumanism? Let me make this very simple. It's all about humanity's overcoming the problems that we faced for eons and how we can create a more effective lifestyle for everyone to better the circumstances in which we live. That means dealing with many of the problems that are here upon us, but also seeking ahead to a world that can offer much, much more than we have today in looking about ways in which we can live healthy and longer and with prosperity for all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for your presentation. We are truly grateful. Sorry, I think we had a little, um, there was a little technical glitch on my end. I think it was on and off for the slide. I'm very much sorry about that. I believe when the class starts, some of these slides will be made available to those persons that really want to engage with some of this presentation. Thank you so very much, Ma.
Of course.
Hello?
Hello? Yes.
All right. Um, please please kindly confirm if you can also hear me very well. You know, sometimes
Hey, you.
Hello there. So thanks so much to Victor and Brenda for this opportunity. And I want to thank also to Edward and Natasha for their very interesting remarks that I will now try to build on in the next 10 minutes or so. My topic is what I call an introduction to vital foresight. A little bit about myself. You can find me on social media, Twitter, as at DW2. I have a background of 25 years at the heart of creating and innovating a new pair of industries, mobile computing and smartphones. When I was a software engineer to start off with, then a software architect, lead technical consultant, I was a futurist even before I knew I was a futurist, because along with my colleagues, I was imagining what uses people would make of smart mobile technology in the future. And then with my colleagues and with many other companies as part of a larger ecosystem, I helped that vision of the future to become, in part, a reality. Then for the last 15 years, I have been chairing what has become the world's largest meetup that is focused on foresight, that is London Futurists. And in that time, I have authored, or in some cases been the lead editor of 12 books about aspects of the future, one of which you can see on the screen now, and Edward was kind enough to display it. Vital foresight. I use the word vital because it is a matter, in a sense, of life or death. Maybe actually, literally, life or death, whether we can handle the technologies of the future wisely. But certainly, it's a matter of possible success and failure, whether we can take advantage of these technologies as individuals, as companies, as regions or countries, and indeed as a global civilization, or whether we fail. So let's talk about the kind of changes that vital foresight seeks to help people deal with. How does change happen? Often it happens a bit like this: slow, slow, nothing much seems to happen. And then, wow, suddenly there is this burst of activity, which, if you don't look out, will take you completely by surprise. I want to talk specifically about three waves of change that are going to sweep over all of us in the next few years in all parts of the world. The first of these waves is breakthroughs in artificial intelligence. And we have seen a lot recently since Google's released the idea of transformers in 2018, since there has been Chat GPT and other generative AI. There has been enormous change in the capabilities of AI in the last 18 months, but I have to say that's nothing compared to what's coming next. GPT-5, Google Gemini, and lots more besides. That's going to lead on to transformations in other technologies, such as nanotech, biotech, and cognitech. And the reason I'm anticipating large changes there too is because each of these technologies are built from intelligence, and the more artificial intelligence is able to help us, the faster these other areas will improve. And with nanotech, we will have improvements in manufacturing of all sorts and improvements in energy of all sorts. With improvements in biotech, we will see lots of changes in agriculture and food preparation, and also changes in healthcare. And with improvements in cognitech, We will see new approaches to education and new approaches to what we might call mental and spiritual exploration. And these will happen, we can't be sure when, but I anticipate very significant changes in the next 3 to 10 years. And that's going to lead on to all kinds of changes in business practice and something else. People are going to gradually see this coming. As they see the new capabilities of AI, they're going to start realizing that everything else will change too. And so the next 2 or 3 years is going to see more discussion about the future than ever before. And we're all going to become futurists, but there will be a lot of amateur or careless or uninformed futurists. And it is our task here on this course to help you to become an informed futurist, able to deal perhaps with the feelings of disgust and disagreements. You should all be able to play your role in anticipating and managing forthcoming disruptions. So, my next topic, after the topic of change in general and what we can expect, is that word disruption. And I've got a nice simple picture here, but in the next few minutes is going to get a bit more complicated. So, let me ask you, am I showing here a disruption on this chart? And the answer is no. This is not a disruption. This is incremental progress. This is you doing what you already do today, but doing it better. This is great companies doing what they already do today and doing it better. But this is a disruption, something that is at first unimportant, weak, disappointing, before it becomes this game changer. So, for example, that blue line might be the old way of taking photographs that Edward was talking about using film. And that pink line might be digital photography, which to start off with was incredibly poor and incredibly slow. And who in their right mind would think the future would be involving digital photography? So that blue line is an existing platform, perhaps an existing form of AI, and the pink line is a new capability, perhaps a new kind of phone, a new type of AI. And each time there is the birth of a potential new platform, there are lots of people like me, like technology journalists, like people trying to raise money, who put a lot of hype and excitement into that new platform. But the reality is often disappointment. Why? Because this new technology might look nice on paper, but in reality, it's difficult to use. You've got to spend a long time configuring it. And if you're not deeply technical, you will need to get your most deeply technical friends to help you. Not great. But the technology enthusiasts say, let's be patient. This is going to improve soon. But there may often be waves of further disappointment. Why? Because although the technology may become easier to use and easier to configure, it's still not very useful. In other words, it's a wonderful technology, but there are no applications or services that do what Natasha was talking about, actually help real people with real issues and bringing them real solutions. And so then you might be tempted to think, well, this new technology is never going to amount to much. But sometimes, as the technology improves and as the ecosystem improves, there can be this sudden, apparently sudden transition. And then the old platform is no longer competitive. And if you were like Kodak with all your processes, skills, and tools based around analog film, it will be very hard for you to adapt and catch up. So in summary, as I said before, this kind of disruption often goes slowly for longer than people expect before it then turns and goes faster than people expected. Well, that's the theory. But once again, if you're down here in the middle, if you are weighing up a possible disruption and you've seen it fail to deliver the goods several times round, you may think this is going to flop. This is going to be what we sometimes in English call a damp squib. So how do you know when a possible disruption is going to fail and fizzle out and when it's going to be truly a game changer? That is one of the subjects of vital foresight. Though I have to say there are no easy answers here, and anybody who tells you there is an easy answer is somebody you should not trust. But there are some general principles that will help you to weigh things up. And in some cases, it will be worth your while preparing for the change. This is what we sometimes call a level 2 futurist. Sometimes you can do more than wait for the change and be ready to catch up quickly. Sometimes you can actually take charge of that change. And what I mean by that is you supply the services and applications, maybe the tools, maybe the design, maybe the consultancy that changes this technology from being cool to being useful. That's what we sometimes call a level 3 futurist. And you're probably wondering what the other levels of futurist are. So let me show you them on a single chart. Level 0 is the ostrich. Level 0 says, I'm not a futurist, I am a nowist. In other words, they think they are going to focus in the here and now. And of course, it is important to focus on the here and now, but not exclusively. And this person says it's not possible to accurately anticipate what's coming with these disruptions. So let's look the other way and hope that when the disruption comes, we won't have our necks chopped off. And there are some remarkably clever people, people with high IQs, who rejoice in rejecting sensible forecasts of the future. They snarl when they hear about the possibilities of more advanced AI. They say, it's just science fiction. Let's focus on the issues and opportunities of today's AI. That's a level 0 futurist, and believe me, you can do a lot better. Level 1 knows that changes are coming, but sometimes takes the view that we want to stamp out the changes. So this is a reactive mode to the future, in which the goal is to keep things largely the same as today. And sometimes that's appropriate. There are probably some changes that technology puts in our grasp to which we should say, no, thank you. But often the case is that there are enormous positive possibilities for these technologies. So you can become that level 2 futurist I mentioned, a fast follower, somebody willing to catch up quickly, preparing for the future, or as I said, you can be the builder of the future. In some cases, when with colleagues, with partners, you figure out how to transform these ideas and you'll become the creator of the future, the market leader in your area, or maybe even globally. And I call this here the creator of the future. A bit of a better word is you will manage it, because you will not be doing it all by yourself, but you will be part of this larger ecosystem. And that brings me to the final quick slide, the vision of anticipating the future and managing it. That's what I put in the subtitle of my book, came out about 12 months ago, The Singularity Principles, Anticipating and Managing the Cataclysmically Disruptive Technologies that are going to be changing the world dramatically in the next 2, 3, 4 years. And you may imagine, because I put this slide up, I'm hoping you will all buy this book. Well, actually, there's better news. The entire contents of this book are available free online. If you go to that transpolitica.org site, you will find projects there, including this project of the Singularity Principles, and you'll be able to spend much more time than I have set now to read some of these principles. So with that, I'll hand back to Victor, and thank you very much for your interest.
Wow. Thank you so very much. Thank you so much for your talk. I learned so much from everything you just said. I don't know the level I am currently as a fisheries. Maybe I'm a level 2 fisheries, fast follower. I'm preparing to catch up as a fisheries. You know, I am a fast follower. I'm not yet a creator. That's why this program is essential for me and every other participant very much. Right away, we'll be going to the next item on the list, and that will be talking about what's the next step in this program. We've literally heard all our speakers come on board. All our speakers have come on board and they've spoken extensively on digital foresight. They've spoken extensively to us on transhumanism and innovation, and they've spoken extensively to us on everything we need to become the next generation of creators right here, starting from Africa and extending to the universe at large, extending to different continents, extending to South Asia, to Asia itself, to South America, to North America, to Europe. We've gotten some of the needed insights. Now, what is the next step for this program now?
Maybe
Hi,
we can
everyone.
take some questions. Yeah, Natasha.
Yeah, so I apologize about my presentation. I'm requesting that I redo it and be inserted into a video if this is going to be used for any reason, because otherwise it's simply wrong. So moving on, I see there's a lot of people in the chat. So hi, Mercy, and let's see, gosh, Life NEI, Life NEI.
Harmony.
So many of you.
Yeah.
Harmony, James. Gosh, it's a lovely group of people. So I don't know if you can ask us questions, but please do. If you have any question, just put it in the chat, then we'll see it. But why don't we just carry on a discussion amongst ourselves? We're all futurists, and we all pretty much approach the same area, but from different angles. And I think that is the beauty of a group like this. Seasoned futurists with different experience that can really add the flavoring to a very good stew of ideas.
Yeah.
So, Victor, are you there? Hi.
Yes, I'm with you now.
So, what do we want to do in this program? What is our key goal?
All right. Now, the key goal of this program is from the executive summary. It's actually an intensive and comprehensive training program designed to equip participants with cutting-edge digital skills. Now, this is not a niche-based program such that you come and learn about software development and you leave. Then the next person that wants to learn about creative design come in and leave. No, this is an all-encompassing program such that you learn about innovation, you learn about the practical approach to innovation, you learn the entrepreneurial part of innovation. We are giving you this program is created to give you a complete whole, a complete package of becoming a true innovator and creator, understanding entrepreneurship, understanding the theory of entrepreneurship, understanding the practicals of entrepreneurship and innovation, and just making you complete in us fair. You will not just be a software developer, or be a software developer
none of us
that
are really software developers. We didn't talk about that. So I think I understand what you're saying is what you want.
Yes, so that is just the overview of this program.
Thinking about the future and innovation. And I think that, David, I enjoyed your presentation. Ed, I enjoyed yours very much too. And the takeaway I have from both of your presentations is that it's imperative now to apply the skills of a futurist within the scope of innovation in this program. And that's the key thing, because most people today do not have those skills. While there's so many people who may refer to themselves as futurists, they don't have the toolkit. And there is a definitive toolkit for futurists. We learn them at university when we study future studies or futurology. And it's a specific set. And I think Ed went over these very well. But how we apply them is imperative. And I think David covered this really nicely, that we can't think about always over there. We have to think about being now in action and doing it, but while we're looking over there. And I loved Ed's metaphor about throwing the ball, you don't throw the ball to the person, you throw it in the direction and have them go after it, right?
Yeah.
I think you need to do both. You do need
Yeah.
to concentrate on the here and now. You've made commitments to customers, you've made commitments to clients, you've made commitments to students. You have to fulfill them, but you must also have a significant part of your thinking as to how things will be different in the future. And that,
Isn't that what I said? I said not
yep,
just on the here and now, but also the
that's
future.
right.
Yes.
So the hard thing is that when you focus on the first, you develop patterns and disciplines which actually are less helpful in doing that second thing, which is why many companies that are great companies nevertheless fail to handle these transitions because they are so optimized, so tuned to that method. So it's hard.
But we have something right now, and the decentralization that's going on with decentralized science, decentralized education, decentralized financing that's going on behind the scenes is really powerful, but it hasn't made its way into the institutions that form the structure for anything we want to do in innovation when thinking about the future. We still have to narrow our minds down to deal with the institutions as they are right now. And that takes an agile brain. It's almost like being an athlete in your capacity to figure out how to work with the institutions today, but be thinking about the innovations and what's going to come around the corner tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think that's a very good way to put it, because sometimes you have people, futurists, transhumanists, and whoever, who are thinking about this incredible, abstract, future city or future whatever,
Right.
so almost a fantasy land, but they don't realize, well, you got to look at what's going on now. And then, of course, you have those who are just looking at what's going on now and not seeing what's going on. And it is a mindset. And I think you're right. And by the way, Natasha, I appreciate that you're actually teaching this. And for those of you listening, you got to enroll in maybe here. I don't know if you do this online in Zoom, but there are techniques you can use to train your mind to be able to see what's now, because you have to deal with it, see how things are going, and then to try to make that transition. I do like. I know David and I have talked about this a little bit too. What Steve Jobs did when he came back to Apple. He sort of appreciated they've been getting most of their money from the Apple II and then the Macintosh, but the company was not doing very well. And so what he did was create a series of innovations, looking at what's happening now, but anticipating, well, let's start with an iPod, and then let's basically take David, I mentioned that, of course, Steve Jobs and Apple did not invent the smartphone.
Right.
What they did was they took the smartphone and they took the iPod and they took the search engines and they put that together. Then they realized we have to do something different. They continue to sort of, yes, we're in the now because we have to have the revenue to basically put the money into the next phase, which means that, okay, nobody really has iPods today because they're all in our phones, and you see what's happening coming up in the future. By the way, I'll just give a quick example to your audience. And again, you can call me crazy. Many people have, but it doesn't bother me. Is that right now, Apple is coming out with their Apple Vision Pro, which is this thing that's an augmented reality where you basically are seeing the living room or the room you're at, but you can kind of look at, I want to open the photos, I want to look at this. One thing I'm excited about is I can actually sit there and I can be sitting in a beautiful mountain setting or whatever and going like this and typing my whatever my paper is without actually having to fly to the mountains. But they're going to be coming out in the next couple of years with Apple glasses. And of course, you know that Apple is very big on healthcare with their Apple watches and so forth. And what I predict, and the glasses are probably going to have retinal scans in them because retinal scans are becoming a very important diagnostic. And so if you're looking ahead, that's what I suspect Apple's going to do. And then this is the really futuristic thing. And again, maybe I'm crazy about this, but bionic eyes are finally coming to a point where, we can test them. And
see, okay, now stop right there.
Yeah.
You keep on saying, call me crazy. No, this has nothing to do with crazy. I already have bionic eyes. I had cataracts and I was going blind. So my eyes are not my retinas are not my biological retinas. I have
That's right.
fake or false
Yeah.
eyes. And
But yeah, and I agree. By the way, my sister-in-law would be stone deaf without the cochlear ear implant.
right, exactly.
And so, yeah, I keep saying that because people who I talk to about this said, well, Ed, this really sounds very,
No, well, just ignore that. Never call yourself crazy, especially to our students. We are not. You are seasoned enough and brilliant enough, Ed, to not be affected by that. And I think this is something that's very important and something for everyone to pay attention to. Oftentimes, when we talk about the future, with our futurist hat on, saying in the future, here's a scenario. Talk about it using, say, here's a scenario, or now, oh, the world's going to be fantastic. We have to qualify that and quantify it. Just can't make blatant statements. And you did that beautifully, and as did David. The thing is that we need to be cognizant of the fact that there will be people who say this will never happen. But David knows it's very well in this smartphone and in the computer world. Oh, we'll never have a computer that weighs less than a ton, or there'll never be personal computers, or why would anyone at home want a computer? I mean, we're saying, why not? Why wouldn't one? And oftentimes people are now criticized for not having one. Where are you? What's going on? So it's always good for us to figure out the best way to say something so that people are enlightened rather than maybe thinking that the future is crazy, in other words. David, what do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think we have to help people to see that, as you said, Natasha, there's been many things happened in the past which people had previously thought were impossible. We look at the conquest of flight. There were so many people who were convinced that flight was impossible. And even after the two Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright, had flown, but it was not widely known or not widely believed, there were still learned professors. There was a letter in the Times of London which said this will never happen for, I forget exactly, thousands of years. And not only did they say it, they had their own scientific theories as to why it would be impossible. Theories which were too fixed in their thinking. They said, well, if we're going to fly like birds, we're going to have to do the same as birds. It turns out that Orville and Wilbur Wright, they copied some aspects of how birds flew, but they did some other things differently. And like your remarkable transhumanist eyes, Natasha, they're not exact copies of the biological eye. In some ways, they are better. And my wife had the same operation or a similar operation recently, and it is truly giving her a new lease of life. Whereas in the past, people would have said, yuck, horrible. People said yuck to the idea of test tube babies. They said this is against God's plan for the universe. They said such creatures who are created in test tubes won't have a soul, or they'll be psychologically damaged because they'll think their mommy and daddy had them made in a test tube. How horrible. It turns out that millions of people were created by IVF, and they seem to have as much of a soul as the rest of us. So we should tell these stories. I think we get better foresight by having a more accurate vision of hindsight.
David, you just nailed it right there, our stories. In my presentation, I have about a story, and I tell a story about a particular belief. Remember de Bergerac? It's about how everyone was told they had to be the same. Right now, we're fighting around the world for equity in many cultures. Everyone wants equity. But if we think about that in the future, do we really all want to be the same? Homogenous world? So we need to separate that out and think about what we want are equal rights. And more diversity. So I think that that's one of those notions that gets obfuscated because we don't want a world where everyone is homogenous, the same, looks the same, acts the same, although we, fashion trends and all of that. And there is diversity, but how do we make people equal in their rights, in their human rights or transhuman rights, but also diversified? That's a challenging notion for any innovator to think about. But can we talk about Africa? What can we do within how we're presenting to you all and everyone in the chat over here? What is needed? Where's the gap in Africa? And I know Ed, excuse me, sorry. I know that was a slip.
Okay.
Ed knows about some of the governments in Africa. Now, remember, there's 55 countries in Africa. So we need to think about not just Africa, which most people in the world do, that there are so many different cultures, even within country like Nigeria or South Africa or Ethiopia, where we do work, that, you have to think about this. How can we assimilate this without not making everyone the same, but understand the differentiations of needs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I talk about this, I talk about when you talk about Africa, it's like talking about Europe, and and Europe is, of course, diverse languages, cultures. I mean, you can say it's kind of in the Western way, but again, if for those of us who lived or worked there, you know that it's very different if you're in Eastern Europe versus Southern Europe versus Britain, like David is there, and so forth. I think I think a couple of points. First of all, again, I think the education system really, and the education really is crucial. And the people who are listening right now on this broadcast, or hopefully will check it out when it's posted on YouTube and other places, really are the pioneers. You're the elite, as it were, who are basically learning how to think like futurists. You first of all recognize the need. You take a look at 50 years of, in many cases, failed policies. You see some progress, certainly in countries, and I can go over it, which countries have done really great jobs of in various areas, but it's been very spotty. So first of all, you folks listening to me are the elite, not in some bad way, but you're the elite because you're the pioneers, you're the doers. You have to educate yourself first. Then you're going to be in your institutions, whether you're, as I started out by saying, whether you're a researcher or scientist, whether you're an entrepreneur creating value, whether you're what I call a social entrepreneur, creating institutions so that everybody can participate, women, people of different backgrounds and the like, or whether you're a public policy entrepreneur trying to unleash these people. You're going to focus on your area, but you're going to be the leaders in the future. You're going to be the people who influence the public policies in your country, the aspirations. People in your various countries are going to see these things, and the countries are going to that have different challenges are hopefully going to learn from one another. Again, so some South Africa is fairly advanced for an African country. It's got a, by the way, we were talking about things that were considered blasphemous. The first heart transplant was by a South African doctor. I think it was,
that's right.
Yeah, 1965 or 6, something along somewhere like that. So you can see that different countries, but one of the things is that countries learn from one another. If you look at the Enlightenment and how it spread in Europe, it was international. So countries had different challenges, but they would learn from one another. I like Voltaire going to England, by the way. It's an incredible story. David probably knows it.
What's interesting is, I was just looking at that earlier today about humanism and the breaking down of humanism, because it was anthropocentric and we don't want to get into those types of things because they'll take us down a slippery slope. And the bottom line here is one question that was asked in the chat was language, and I think that is the bottom line. We need to know what percentage of countries in Africa speak English or can at least read English, and if there are translators there. Now, if you have a community, say, well, let's just say a country, one of the 55 countries in Africa that has, say, 12 to 25 languages, then we get into some complexities. But I think that we can tie in some projects. For example, in Ethiopia, I'm working with a group called DigiTruck, and it started out in coding, and now we're bringing in electricity. And we've provided a fair amount of money, and the United Nations, I mean, not the United Nations, the UN there in that location also provided money. And so this is good to get that started. Maybe somehow that's education, teaching coding. But what we want to do also with that is bring in a futurist thinking. Maybe somehow we can implement that with that particular project. So can anyone answer that question in the chat? Lifani, you say diverse languages. Well, how do you suggest that we do that?
Well, I have a thought here, which is that the new large language models, ChatGPT and so on, LLM, the things in the name, large language models, they are capable of studying more language text than ever before. And the progress with machine translation has been remarkable and is even more remarkable with these large language models. So it is possible that we won't anymore have to choose. We won't have to think, what are the 6 most important languages in Africa, and
Well
have a
said,
long argument, but we will be able to feed this into these systems and make much more progress.
Right.
Humans can still help because these systems aren't completely perfect, and so a skilled transhumanist in that who already knows that language can take the text that comes out of the large language model in a new dialect, a new language, and can correct it. There is even progress with languages that have never been written down, and there are languages like that which don't have written form. I saw a talk recently by an engineer. I can't remember whether she was from Google or from Facebook. She was from one of these. She had grown up in a distant community where the language was never written down. She had eventually learned French and moved to France and learned to speak English as well. But she was part of this project that actually translation could take place into languages that had never been written down. And I think this is a great use of technology so that the key ideas of transhumanist can be shared much more widely. So let's make it happen.
Yes, Peter Demandis just sent out a large language model. He said learning large language models. And this could be something that DigiTruck could also teach in the programming aspect of it. So yeah, I love that. I'm sorry, Victor.
Okay. No, if we're to leave just this discussion, I think we can stay here for the next 3 hours. I enjoy this discussion. I've noticed so many things that I'm learning a lot. So this is just for the participants of this program. We need not say much. You can already anticipate a lot from these discussions they are having. And Dr. Natasha would be in this program. She'll be handling a certain aspect of this program, teaching on some aspects of transhumanism, critical thinking. So many things have been laid out for this program. You don't want to be told how this program went. Rather, you want to be part of this program. Now, going forward in this program, we'll be having private sessions. Certain participants have been chosen for this program. It's an all-exclusive program. It's not open to the public. If you need to participate in this program, you can quickly go to the TAP's social media channel on Facebook, join the Telegram group, go through the admission process, and be part of this Digital Accelerator Program, where you hear these speakers, these elites when it comes to knowledge. I call these persons elites when it comes to knowledge. They'll give you practical aspect. Now, going forward, we'll be having practical applications and project experience and exercises during our classes. We'll be having 3 classes every week. Depends on we're having 3 classes every week, and the participants will be notified beforehand to get themselves prepared. And these classes, we have workshops, we're handling real life projects, we're having case studies just as they've made mention of, and we're having other digital and problem solving challenges in the program. Also, you have an opportunity to be part of personalized mentorship. Now, this personalized mentorship will be open to, take note of these keywords, dedicated and consistent participants. Dedicated and consistent participants. We have an opportunity to have personalized mentorship, one-on-one mentorship in case maybe, with some of our professionals that will be in this program. These are just few of them. We have so many professionals lined up, from the blockchain industry, from software development, to creative design, to gamification and game science. These persons will be coming in. And also, going forward in this program, you have opportunity to have both paid and unpaid mentorship opportunity with partners of TFFDS. So also, I'll be calling if you, any one of you or anybody listening to this podcast and this live stream of the onboarding center right now. If you wish to partner with CFFDS for this digital aggregators program, please quickly reach out to any of our resource persons on the social media channel. Send a message, book a meeting. We have a discussion with you and see how you can partner with us in this program. Thank you very much, because I feel that is all for now. I will leave our resource persons, if they still want to give us some very vital ingredients to solidify what we've eaten in knowledge. I would want to hear them round off with one or two keywords, then we'll call it a day. Thank you very much. So please, Dr. David, please, you can give us your last word, not your last word generally, your last word for this stream, and you can go, sir.
Well, I'm going to borrow a word from Natasha. The word is agile. The word agile means that we have to be able to change our minds quickly. It means we have to be able to learn by reading, but also learn by doing, because certain things nobody has done before, certain things we can't know in advance. So the skill of agile is a core part of vital foresight, and I'm sure we'll be covering that. It's more than a buzzword. It's an actual set of disciplines, and it's about breaking down uncertainty step by step, delivering something of real value each time, and then getting feedback. So that's the key skill, among several others, that will help to distinguish those who are going to succeed in the disruptive times ahead and those who are going to be struggling and maybe even left behind.
Wow. Dr. Natasha, please.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking, yeah, I like being the athlete of the mind. I think that's really important. So agility and agile fits in there. I also like having the awareness that of critiquing. When critiquing others, be careful to show objectivity, but always critique yourself. Continually question what you think you know compared to what is being expressed in the sciences and in the scholarship of any field. I think that's so important, and to really, more than anything, apply the thinking about the now, of course, and the future, to throw that ball out there and see where it lands, but also be thinking about the system, the different variables, the elements that all contribute to how things are coming together. Find that gap. Don't be afraid of it, and see what you can do. Again, this is called need finding for your particular communities, your countries, your friends and family, for the best life that you can live. What do you need, and how can you go about to attain it with an authenticity and level of advocacy in pushing that forward? Thank you.
Dr. David, Dr. Edwards, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah, just I want to associate myself with the comments of my colleagues here. I could not have said it better. I might just add one or two very quick things. There was a theorist with whom I disagreed pretty much on all of his content, but he spoke about a long march through the institutions and how you change things. And this was a revolutionary on the left who talked about, instead of burning down buildings and doing that kind of stuff, we work through institutions, we change institutions. This is going to have a synergy changing culture, and that's how we change things. Now, again, I very much disagreed with his content. I'm not a Marxist or a communist, but his insight about how you do things was, I thought, very good. If you look at the Enlightenment, you see how those ideas went through a culture and changed and worked together and so forth. And so one of the things I'm interested in doing is looking at how we can take all of this brilliant thinking, the works. I'm holding up David's book again there. Sorry for plugging you. Or maybe I shouldn't apologize for plugging you. But basically, oh yeah, I've got that one too, as you well know. Hold it up there. Yeah, by the way, the first book, Max Moore's essay, I think is the best discussion of transhumanism, if you want to know a good summary of what it is. But basically looking at how we can take all of this brilliant work that's been done over the decades and make it real in institutions and in the way that we think, and change mindsets. And so I'm very eager to do that. One of my first efforts was I came up with an idea at another place I worked for, an index of economic freedom, basically to gauge economic liberty and then look at which policies work best to bring countries, for example, from poverty to prosperity, a predictive model, as it were. And, but I look at this in the broader sense. What's the best way? What's the best strategies to take these ideas and this work and go to Nigeria or South Africa or any of these countries? I've been to Kenya and Tanzania, and basically help to bring those countries, because again, sorry for going on so long, but my late parents in the last year or so of their lives were treated in many hospitals and so forth. One of my best doctors was a Nigerian. We had a Nigerian. We had someone from Rwanda, from all these other countries, and so we know that Africans do a great job here in the United States. I want them to do a great job everywhere in Africa. So thank you very much.
Since we're holding up books, let me briefly hold up this, The Death of Death, which is the newest book with my name on it, which is, as you can read there, the scientific possibility of physical immortality and its moral defense. This is discussing a possible enormous disruption in our future, and there's a lot of science in there. And Jose Cordero and I will be on a show a bit like this. It's in the World Talent Economy Forum on Wednesday. So those who want to continue some of this conversation, look out online for the World Talent Economy Forum, and you will have a chance to hear at least some of the follow-on from the fine discussion we've had today.
Amazing. I want this conversation to go on, but I can't borrow that time from you. You've made a lot of sacrifices to be here, and I know very well we've learned a lot. So participants, get set, get ready. This is just the onboarding session, and you can see how filled you feel, how filled with knowledge you are right now. Just imagine sitting under these persons for the next 6 months. Your mindset will change. You will be an athlete of the mind. You'll be able to find needs and solve problems. Now, just like Dr. Edwards said, we're able to stage a march to the institutions. We're able to cause institutional changes after learning from these persons. So thank you all very much for staying to the end of this onboarding session. After now, I will be playing a video of our upcoming program in August, which is the International Longevity Summit. The International Longevity Summit will be playing next, and it's been going down as an overlay for now. It's going next, and our very own will be speaking and inviting us for the program, Dr. David. Thereafter, we call it an end to this program. So thank you very much, our resource persons. I'm really, really grateful for. I bugged you with so many mails, sending so many mails back and forth, and thank you for being here today. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Welcome. It's my pleasure to accept an invitation to speak at the International Longevity Summit, which will take place in South Africa on the 23rd and 24th of August. The stated theme of the summit is the Longevity and Biotech Revolution in Africa, leveraging the dynamics of diversity, inclusivity, and innovation. The venue is the beautiful setting of the 26 Degree South Hotel at the Cradle of Humankind Heritage Site in Johannesburg. The topic of my presentation at the summit will be Longevity Escape Velocity as the New Copernican Revolution. Here's a brief summary of what I expect to say. Progress is sometimes evolutionary and sometimes revolutionary. Humanity's approach to health has passed through a number of revolutions in the past, with key new ideas often being fiercely resisted before being embraced. there are some vital lessons which can be learned from these past disruptions. With these lessons in mind, it becomes clearer what we should all be doing in order to accelerate the attainment of what will be healthcare's most important revolution of all, the welcoming of longevity escape velocity. I'll also be highlighting what will be, by then, the newly published English language version of the book that Jose Cordero and I have co-authored, namely The Death of Death, the scientific possibility of physical immortality and its moral defense. You can find more details of the summit at conference.tafts.org, including different registration options. I recommend that you look at the VIP package, which includes 3 nights at the hotel, a post-conference tour of the region, a gala dinner, and much more besides. Indeed, why not consider extending your stay and making it a truly memorable experience? Together, we can support each other and bring longevity escape velocity closer. I look forward to seeing you in Johannesburg.
Thank you. Thank you also very much. You are invited for our program. If you look at your screen right now, you'll be able to see, for more information, for sponsorship, partnership, you can quickly get across to our CEO and the organizer of the summit, Brenda at tsfds.org. Send a mail and you'll be very well attended. So thank you, Dr. David, for staying to this very time. I'm truly grateful.
My pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much. So hello, everyone. That's the end of the onboarding event. I remain your program lead, Urefe Ogeneyoma Victor. You'll see me over and over again on your screen. After now, we'll be having a private session. And starting from next week to the 1st of August, we'll be having our lessons. These lessons will be structured and will be recorded in Zoom. So only those persons that are admitted to be part of this program, we have access to them. I don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss this. I will advise you very well. I will advise you now to quickly ask in the comment section, how can I be part of this program? How can I be part of this program? We ask that question, we respond to you immediately, send a message, we respond to you immediately, and you'll be part of this program after going through the admission process. Thank you very much, and do stay agile, be an athlete of the mind, make sure your mind is busy. Find needs, and learn about ways for you to solve these needs and make institutional changes. And I tell you, the future is ours to conquer, and the future is ours to own. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.